Welcome to Discover Energy Work. Today I'm with Gary Ramsay, and it's very exciting. I got recommended. I wrote to Anita Morjani. Anita Morjani said, "Well, we're really busy at the moment, Richard. Would you like to talk to Gary Ramsay?" And I went, "I think I would. I've got a feeling that I was supposed to write to Anita Morjani to speak to Gary Ramsay, but I don't know why. So this is kind of exciting. I'm going to find out why I should be talking to Gary Ramsay now. How are you, Gary?"
I'm well, Richard. Thank you so much for having me here. I truly appreciate it.
It's excellent. No, I'm very excited. I mean, you've written a book. That's the first thing I understand. It's like you're part of this exclusive club of people who've had amazing experiences that have been able to write a book about it.
Yeah, exactly. And I wrote a book about it really because of Anita Morjani. My story, Anita and I had met, and she heard my story. And when she heard it, she was just completely blown away. So she decided to have me on her radio show. And that was the beginning of the whole thing.
Oh, wow.
And my story. Yeah.
Right, because Anita's a Hong Konger, so I'm out here in Asia, and I missed Anita in Hong Kong. I never met her in Hong Kong. I'd love to meet her, but I just never did. And I thought, well, I should really get a Hong Konger on here, and so but when we now have you, and we're kind of connecting through you, which is kind of nice.
Yes.
So tell me, what's the story? What happened?
Well, I mean, in a nutshell, I walked into my doctor. I hadn't been feeling good. I had had certain symptoms. I thought something was going on, and I walked into the doctor. He took tests. I got the test results back. I went to talk to him, and he looked at me and he said, I have to tell you, you can die at any minute. And I went, what? Like, not something you expect any doctor to say, who was a specialist on top of it.
Yeah.
I said,
yeah, I've got shivers at the back of my neck. I mean, what goes through your head when somebody says you can die at any minute? I freeze. I mean, if somebody said that, I'm like, what the?
Totally was taken aback. And I have to be honest, Richard, I really didn't think he was serious. I thought he was kind of going to make a joke out of it. And so, of course, the first thing I said, what? And he repeated it, you can die at any minute. And then I was like, oh my God, he's serious. And so I asked him how, and he said, he said, first of all, you have cancer. And I said, I do. How do you know that? He said, well, it really doesn't matter if you have cancer or not. He said, because I said, shouldn't we take a biopsy? He said, look, you've got a massive tumor. It's going from your kidney, through your renal vein, and it's going up towards your heart. He said, these are highly dangerous. They're very rare. He said, and if the tiniest piece comes off, it's going to go up to your heart and it's going to stop your heart. And you are going to die within 7 to 10 minutes. And I said, how is this possible? He said, I don't know. He said, this is not a typical thing that occurs. So I realized as he was talking, the doctor was in shock.
Yeah.
Because he was kind of blown away that my situation was so grave. So I just kind of looked at him and I thought, well, wow. I said, well, what can be done about this? And he said, well, that's the bad news. And then I was like, you mean
I thought you'd give me the
die
bad
any minute? Right. I mean, I've got the deadly tumor and now you're going to give me bad news. And he said, the bad news is, he said, I think anything that we try to do to you is going to kill you. Right. He said, I don't think there's any way out of this. Well, that was just mind-blowing. And it was at that point when I really realized I got very still. I got very quiet. And I kept listening to him and he kept explaining to me where it was. And then he was going on about hospitals. He said, look, there's only 2 hospitals within 100 miles of New York City, of this area, that can handle you. And he said, one is right here, Sloan, Kettering in New York, and the other is Hackensack. He said, you can't even go to other hospitals because they won't even have the team to be able to deal with us. And I said, but you're saying that the surgery isn't going to work. He said, from my experience with these kinds of tumors, he said, no. He said, you're probably going to die on the table. So if I were you, I wouldn't go into the hospital until you've gotten all your affairs in order. Well, this was just like my whole, life was turned around in those 10 minutes.
You're telling me.
Oddly enough,
So what does that mean? What was your life? You were a doctor, dentist.
I was a teacher. I was working. I teach the Alexander technique. I don't know if you're familiar with that,
Yes,
but very old technique.
Yes.
I was a singer, opera singer. I was actually getting ready to do a big opera opening in Texas within a few weeks. I had a very happy and fulfilled life before that.
Yeah.
I did realize later, in retrospect, I was burning the candle a little bit too much, which is how I got sick in the first place. But I was happy. I mean, I was not an unhappy, fearful person. So I got this diagnosis. I immediately asked him, I said, could I please have my medical records? So he was kind of shocked, and so was I, because I thought, what am I going to do with them? I mean, basically anywhere I go, these records are not going to be of any use. And then I left, and that's when it all happened. As soon as I got out of his office, it was a beautiful day, beautiful. It was late in August, and it was just one of those perfect days, not too hot, not too cool. The wind was blowing, and I made my way to a park because I didn't even know what I was going to do. And I saw this park with all these children playing and these parents and, keepers, babysitters. And all of a sudden it hit me. Oh my God, anyone right now that I'm seeing can die at any minute. Not just me, but anyone here. One of these children could run out into the street and be hit by a car. I mean, some of these people maybe are not going to be alive later today. Maybe they're going to drop dead of a heart attack. And that was so profound that literally everything stopped. All thought, all concern, all even movement. I was aware of people moving, but it was like there was no more noise. Everything got profoundly peaceful. And I can only describe it as being in a state of bliss. I was in total bliss. And I made it to a bench there in the park, and I sat down, and I don't even know how long I was there. I was just in a state of complete and utter bliss, and everything was fine. There was not any problems anywhere. It was like it hit me like a ton of bricks. And then boom. Yeah. I didn't even feel like there was anything wrong with me anymore. And that is when.
Yeah.
Yes, go ahead.
This rings a bell with me of having moments of just fully giving up and just feeling bliss. Yeah, just peace. Everything's fine. There isn't a problem. There are actually no problems. Yeah.
Very true. Very.
I mean, how can I say? There are problems, but not in that state. Just absolutely not in that state. So, I think it's always a bit of a bitter one when somebody's suffering through an issue and they're told there are no problems. Yes, when you're in a certain state, there are problems. But I remember having no money, and I felt like, I don't think I can go on. I just I think I should give up, like zero money. And I went, I think I'm going to go and, say my last farewells. And then I sort of stopped, and inside something let go. And one of the things is I sort of said, I have $20, 20 Hong Kong dollars, which is, by the way, like about $3 US. Yeah. So I do have money. So that's actually not even true that I don't have money, because I have $3. Yeah. And, but I felt like, and there aren't actually any problems. Like right now, right in this second, everything's perfect. It's kind of weird. there isn't a problem. But do go on,
Absolutely.
because I think, I mean, I'm fascinated. It's nice, you know, what's nice is to hear it confirmed, but in a really very different way. And for you, like, it was a bit of a humdinger. It came like as,
Yep. I was pressed up against the wall. I mean, there were no options. And I think that's why the surrender hit me so profoundly.
mm,
Um, and it was that little realization about anyone could die at any minute. It was, we know that, but
but
it just hit me in a way that I had never thought about it before.
so were you New Age before? Were you like into
I
spiritual
was
things?
always investigating different things. So, for example, Anita Morjani,
Yeah,
I had read her book when it first came out, 2012. I was always open. Uh,
right.
it wasn't necessarily that I was born Catholic. I know about miracles. I mean, I've come from that background.
Yeah,
I would never poo-poo them, and I would never promote them. I would just kind of accept and go, well, that's interesting.
yep,
And then, it happened to me.
right.
And while I was sitting in that park, Anita Morjani is exactly who came up. I literally was stirred out of this bliss state by Anita, almost like she woke me up. And I remembered her book. And for those that don't know the book, I mean, Anita was on her deathbed and her organs were failing from end stage cancer. And
Mm,
she had a near death experience that then in a Hong Kong hospital, her cancer disappeared within a 8 to 14 day period.
yeah,
And I remembered that story and I thought, wow, she was incapacitated. She was unconscious. She was in a coma. She only weighed like, I think 80, 75 pounds, something ridiculous. And she was riddled with cancer. And I thought, I'm alive. I'm moving. I feel really very good. And maybe there's going to be something for me. And that's really what rallied me. That's kind of what put me back into action.
mm,
And I thought, oh my God, yeah, I've got to call somebody. Like, what if I die right now? Nobody knows. I've got to do something. And then I was even thinking, like, what do people who are going to die, what do they do?
right,
Like,
right.
what would you do? And I thought, well, let me call my sister. Maybe I should call her. Which, I kind of got myself into a bad state because I started laughing because it struck me funny because I started thinking, well, oh my God, she wanted me to call her right after the doctor and I didn't. And I thought, oh my God, she's going to think the worst. And then I thought, oh my God, this is the worst. This is the
She
absolute
got
worst.
it. Bingo. It is the
Got it.
worst.
Yeah. And, I called her up and I was really a little too happy and she thought I was joking.
Right.
And then finally I had to calm myself down. I was like, no, I know this sounds crazy, but I'm having this experience and it's a little profound. I said, and I know I sound like I'm in a good mood, but he really told me I'm going to die at any minute. And that's when the realization struck. And she was the first person I was actually,
Right.
telling this to.
Right.
And I still felt like, yes, I understand the seriousness, but I never had this feeling of terror ever.
Right.
It just wasn't coming at me that way. So then I had to call the producer, cancel the opera. So I had a lot I was doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was trying to take care of other people, really,
Right.
is what I was doing.
Right. What an
Yes, go
irony.
ahead.
Just an irony. Like you're like you've been told it's 7 minutes. If something goes off, it's 7 minutes.
7 minutes.
And then, like, I mean, I can think like the title for the show is 7 minutes to live. Yeah. Um,
Yeah.
because if anything goes wrong, yeah. And then you're worrying about other people. And I'm also very much reminded of Kubler-Ross's, her stages of grief.
Oh, yes. Yes.
So the first thing is
Mhm.
like denial, like it can't really be real, sort of
Yes.
thing, and then anger, and then bargaining, and so on, and
You
depression,
go
and
through all the levels.
well,
Yes.
yeah, apparently it's a bit higgledy piggledy, and it comes as it comes.
Uh-huh.
But you might say from from a cognitive point of view, like, oh yeah, you're just disbelief. Yeah, like you just don't believe, like
Hmm.
shock and disbelief. You don't really
Hmm.
believe it, so you don't know how to deal with it. But I mean, I recognize that bliss state. I mean, that's I think that is, I think that's like a Buddha state. I always think like Buddha is,
I would agree.
he's gone around the world. He's gone, I want to find out the answer to suffering. And then he's gone, I've done this for like 20 years and I can't, I'll give up. And so he sits, I'm gonna
Right.
have some porridge on this tree. Somebody's gonna bring me a bowl of porridge and I'm going home. I've had enough. And in that moment, he just lost it. He just lost all the struggling.
Yes.
And then his goal appeared. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah.
um, and
Beautiful.
uh, and that's really what I feel. What your story also reminds me of this. Um, was it emergency technician? On the ambulances.
Yes.
I don't know what you call them in America, but these paramedics, they come, and
Right.
then we call them ambulance men in England, but they
Oh,
come, and then they're supposed to say, "Oh, you're going to be fine." But this ambulance man would say to people who he didn't think were going to survive, he said, "I don't think you're going to make it," and they would completely calm down. They would just go to this. Okay,
wow.
it's fine. They didn't have this. Oh, I've got to do this. It's like, okay, well, I'm going to have to let go of everything right now. And I think, in a way, in so many ways, perhaps we could learn something from that in the way we treat people who are, seriously sick. It's like they start to just, okay, I'm going to let go. I'm going to start, let go and let life or let love or let the divine force flow.
Flow.
Yeah.
And I will say from that moment on, that's exactly what started to happen to me. Life began to unfold. I didn't really, because again, I really did believe that I wasn't going to survive, as the doctor had told me.
Okay.
He was, a pretty big person in his field, and he was a
Mm.
specialist. Um, but as I was walking home, then I put the key in the door, and this is, after I made my calls, and I thought about Farrah Fawcett, and I remembered Farrah Fawcett had been flown to Germany prior to her death. And I had asked a friend, why would they fly a sick woman to Germany? And they said, oh, Germany has some of the top cancer treatments in the world. And I remembered that. And I
Okay.
thought, wow, why don't I get on on my computer and check out Germany? And maybe they've got something that they just don't have in America. It was a thought that I thought, let me try it. So I went up there, and sure enough, I started finding things, and then this pop-up came from Mexico on the side. And I looked at it, and it was gorgeous. It was like a 4-star hotel. I couldn't even believe it was a hospital. It was a clinic. And I thought, oh my God, that's gorgeous. If I was going to die, I want to die there. I was like, this would be like the place to go.
Yeah, it's
Um,
like,
and then, sure enough, as I investigated, they dealt with cancer. So then I got excited and I thought, oh, wow, but would they deal with my cancer? Would they
mm,
deal with this rare,
mm,
crazy tumor?
mm.
So sure enough, I call up. They have a line here in the States for people here. And I get this lovely woman, and she's talking to me. And I told her, I said, I have this rare tumor. And they're saying that there's very little they can do. And she goes, oh, yes, we know all about these tumors. And I'm like, you do? I said, they're telling me they're rare. And she goes, yes, they are. And we get a lot of people who come to us, and we have a different therapy that we do. And I said, but they said there's nothing they can do. And she said, yes, in the States, that is what they say. But here we have a completely different perspective. And I am telling you, when she said those words, it was like, whoa, a different perspective.
You took your
She said, no,
glasses off when you were saying that. I just got to say, it's like kind of weird. You went like, okay, we're going to talk about the new perspective, and you took your glasses off. I'm like, wow, that's very dramatic. It's like, we're going to have a whole new view on this.
a new view on this. And it literally was a whole new view. She said, no. Now she said, we can't guarantee anything, but we do a preparatory work on the tumor to toughen the tumor so that the tumor actually doesn't become fragile. When you go into surgery, it won't break apart on you, because that would be my problem. It would stop my heart.
Right.
I said, really? I said, do you have a lot of success? She said, well, we have way more success than the States. I said,
right.
I think I'm in. Yeah. And she said, that's great. She said, but you have to be, the clinic out there, they don't take you unless they feel they want to examine your case. So she said, what we would really need is your medical records. Do you happen to have them? And wouldn't you know, that's exactly what I asked the doctor for, those medical records.
Yeah.
And I had them right there.
Yeah.
And I said, oh my God, as a matter of fact, I have them. And she said, wow, what foresight you had to have those, ask for the records. And I said, to be honest, I thought it was stupid when I asked for the records, because I didn't think there was anything I could do. And she said, wow. She said, when were you diagnosed? And I said, about 2 hours ago. And she went, oh my God, you're doing so incredibly well for just receiving this diagnosis.
Right.
And I said, I'm feeling really good. And then she said, again, something very profound. She said, it's people like you that will be healed.
Mm.
And I thought, wow, what a thing to say to me on the phone. And she said, you will see at this clinic, attitude and perspective is everything. She said, it's everything. So as it was, I was able to get everything in that night. And then the clinic was able to assess my case, and they did feel they would be able to help me. They did feel that my diagnosis was very correct. They said, your doctor was very wise to be very upfront with you. Yep. They said, but we feel you have a much better chance. We have a much better chance here doing the surgery than you would in the States. I
seriously, I've just got to go. I've got to go to the serendipity here. It's just unbelievable, because I'm trying to find somebody that does, I don't know, fillings or something, of a certain type in, and you can spend hours on the internet, hours and hours, and 2 hours later, and you're on the phone with the right place. I mean, your story reminds me of one of the guys. I've got to tell you because it's a funny story. He decides he wants to learn hypnosis, and he's asleep on his sofa, and he wakes up, goes to the computer and searches, finds somebody who's running a hypnosis class, writes down the number, and then goes back to sleep. Phones him the next day, found the guy. There was no advert. The guy did have a class. There was no advert. There was nothing on Google. It was just just bizarre. This stuff kind of appears for you, Amazing. Yes. Amazing.
Synchronicity.
It's something, and again, there's something happening, isn't there? Or something can happen.
And I will tell you, it really happened at that moment in the park.
Right.
That put me in a zone that was so surreal. I mean, people often even say when they read my story, they say, this is unbelievable. I said, you know what? I think it is too. If it hadn't happened to me, I don't know if I would believe it. I really don't. Right. Because it was one of the most surreal experiences, and everything started to just fall into place. Everything became profound. Everything was a lesson. Everything was unbelievably synchronized. It was like the universe was transpiring or conspiring to make me well. I actually couldn't believe it.
Did you have an experience of your masks falling away?
Absolutely.
Yeah, because I wanted to mention that, because that's something that I recognize from myself, is my masks, and they still do sometimes, they just fall away, and I get back to who I really am. Can you tell me about that, about your experience with your masks falling away?
Well, it goes in a series of progressions, because when I got accepted then to the clinic, I was on a high. And so I was really working fast because I was diagnosed on a Tuesday and I was out there on a Sunday. So I only had Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, 4 days to kind of wrap up my life. And also, you know, people don't realize you have all this financial stuff you have to get in order.
Yeah.
And I had to get things changed out of my name into other people's name just in case I did die, because I mean, it was still on the table that I could die.
Yeah. 7 minutes. If any,
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, the one thing they told me, they said, you got to stop eating all sugar, which was good, because I was pretty close. I was not doing any processed food or anything like that. But they said, don't touch any sugar and the tumor will be fine during the flight. They said, you won't have a problem. So that was really good. But then, for example, I was having trouble with the bank because the bank likes, you know, all this paperwork.
Yeah.
And finally, one mask, I never ask people for favors, for example. And I walked into the bank and they were giving me the same story they'd given me on the phone. And there was this woman, lovely woman I was talking to. And I said, look, I know this sounds insane, but I could die at any minute. I've been told this. I'm going to Mexico for a special treatment that they don't do in the United States. And if I don't get this taken care of by Saturday, if I don't get this done, I said, my sister is going to be out there and have no money available to her. And this is going to be very expensive. I said, could you please do something? And all of a sudden, this woman just, tears coming down her face. And she said, oh my God, don't worry. Got on her computer and she totally just said, you be here on Saturday morning and you have your sister on the phone at her bank. And I promise you before you leave, it will be all taken care of.
Oh, that's
and it was
beautiful.
stuff like that. And
that gave
other
me
Gary Ramsay,
real shower. Oh my goodness.
Absolutely. That my old self would have never done that. I would have never used my situation to manipulate something. And I didn't even do it purposefully. It just came out of my mouth.
Do you know, like, I've got to say, there is something funny. If you threaten people or say you try and push people, you get a very different reaction to, is there any way you can help me? Have you noticed that? If you said, like, I have this situation and I need you to help me, you're like Obi-Wan, you're our only hope. You know, it's, you know,
yes,
you are my hope. If you know, I mean, but it makes people heroes in a way, doesn't it? But I mean, she was a real hero. She was a real hero to do that. I don't imagine that was easy inside the bank.
No, not at all, because she had you know, and we did that on a Saturday, and she got permission on the people on top of her, you know, above her, and boom, I walked in Saturday morning, done. When I left, everything was exactly the way it needed to be for my journey. Wow. So it was, and the masks, so that was one, but I mean, then even when I got on the plane, you know, I finally felt like relieved because I got on the plane and it was like, oh, I'm going, and we had a problem on the plane in mid-flight, and I was kind of half asleep when it happened, but we dropped very quickly in altitude. They hit some kind of thing and they were like, boom, boom. And I jolted and I really felt like something broke. Like I felt like something inside of me, something happened. And I thought I was dying on the plane.
Right.
And I thought, oh my God, I think it broke. And I first started to panic. And then right away, my mind was like, what are you panicking about? If you've only got 7 minutes, there's nothing you can do. They can't land the plane and get you do anything for you. So I thought, oh my God, why am I panicking? So I got very quiet. I got very still once again. And that was another mask. It was like me and death. And I just kind of went, you're right. I'm just going to stay here. I'm going to stay calm. I'm not going to cause a panic in the plane. I'm not going to involve other people. I'm just going to lay on this seat and they'll find me and I will have died. They'll think I had a heart attack or something. And lo and behold, I was totally fine. Everything calmed down. And once again, nothing happened. And so I would have these events constantly coming up, and one mask after the other, after the other. Even before I left, I just would like to tell you this. I had a lot of people that were against me going to Mexico.
Right.
The only one that was not truly against it was my sister. But there were a lot of people that were against it. And I got a lot of threats. I had people that were furious with me, wouldn't speak to me, because they thought I was being scammed, basically, and that I was just going to go out to Mexico, spend a lot of money, and I was going to die anyway. And I had to really look at that as well, because these people who really loved me really said, if you do this, I will never talk to you again. And I said, well, I'm sorry about that, but I'm going to do it. And do you know, many of them did not ever talk to me again. So that was a profound awakening as well.
Yeah, isn't it funny? I talk about cognitive dissonance. It's so difficult for people to confront something which challenges their beliefs, and it's so painful. That's what cognitive dissonance is you experience something which challenges your beliefs, and sometimes they're really core beliefs, and it's less painful for them to have you out of their lives than to challenge those beliefs.
That's exactly correct.
Yeah.
And I will say, there were, even when I got back and I was well, there were a lot of people that were not happy about that as well. They were, because again, they had been proven wrong. So even when I first got back, there were a lot of people thought I was going to die still, that I had been scammed, and that really I was just going to die from this cancer, which didn't happen. It's been 5 years now.
So you had an operation, and you had the treatment, you had the operation. And
that's correct. I had the operation, and I will say, we had some bad moments. It wasn't all bliss. I had some very painful moments.
Yeah.
We had a lot of problems with my blood. My weight had gone down severely, because when they're starving the tumor is starting to eat up you. So they weren't giving the tumor anything it wanted. So the tumor then was pulling it from me.
Yes.
So I had a lot of muscle wasting. I was down to like 140 pounds, maybe 138 pounds. It was a lot. Then my blood cell count kind of took a dive just before the surgery, which was a problem. I had to have a transfusion. So there were a lot of variances, but through it all, I really have to honestly say I was not worried. I knew whatever way it was going to be, if I was going to get well or if I was going to die, it was all going to be fine, which again is very much Anita in her book. She knew whether she went back into her body or didn't, it was all going to be fine. And that's really
I find it fascinating. Yeah, I find it fascinating because you've mentioned a couple of times where you've like that moment when you were on the plane, and there's this sudden jolt, and you think, I'm going to die, and this from deep within you comes this peaceful reassurance, similar to that moment in the park. It's like, well, yeah, look, everybody could die. Maybe everyone here's got another 7 minutes. We don't know.
And they don't know.
And I find it fascinating that you've had that, and you have that capacity. And I mean, exactly, that's why the podcast is here, because I'd like people, like you read Anita Moorjani's book, and, plug for Anita here. Totally brilliant, brilliant story. But in the same way that you telling your story or people reading your book will maybe that wakes a little bit of something up for them.
Absolutely. And since I've written the book, which by the way I called Bliss, because that's how it started. It started with bliss. And then I took Joseph Campbell's thing about the hero's journey, and I said one hero's journey. So my idea is that we are all heroes on a journey, and this is one of the heroes on the journey, and this is my story.
Well, you know, it's interesting because I love I love Joseph Campbell, and I can't really say I'm an expert, but I love the story with the tells of the Knights of the Round Table.
Yes, yes.
And he says that they have to go on a quest and they have to, you know, go on their journey, but they're not allowed to go down a path that anybody else has been down. And it's very much, you know, you're kind of going into the unknown when, well, that's my imagination. Of course, this woman's saying, okay, this doctor in Mexico saying, well, actually, it's not unknown, but certainly for you, and certainly as you can tell from the reaction of your friends, it was like going into the unknown. Completely.
Absolutely. And let's face it, you know, what I learned, and especially after having written the book and other people with cancer reading the book,
Yeah.
no cancer is the same in each person. Even though they both may have kidney cancer, it's not manifesting in the same way. It doesn't matter what the cancer is. Unfortunately, in the States, we're all treated the same.
Right.
And that is part, I think, of the problem. See, at this clinic, I was treated as me, and I was treated at what my cancer was doing. I was tested daily. What did it like? What did my cancer not like? What made it happier? What made it angrier? Right. And then what they did is they figured out how my system was reacting to my cancer and how to best navigate through that. In the States, they really don't do that. It is a one size fits all. And everybody, like, you know, there's chemotherapy for kidney, and then you're given that. And then if that doesn't work, they throw the next one at you. But they don't really tailor it to the individual. Whereas my whole treatments were tailored to me. There wasn't one thing. And I also would like to add that after I had the surgery, I was staged at a stage 2 cancer. So I had a stage 2 cancer. They said your tumor was enormously large. They really understood why the doctor was feeling that this was certain death, because they said it's abnormally large. You don't see that until a stage 4 or more. And after the treatments, I said, well, what are we going to do about the cancer? And they said, oh, we have a serum that we make out of your tumor. And I said, you have a what? And they said, we have a serum, make it out of the tumor. And what we're going to do is we're going to make a supply, and we're going to inject you with that serum for 6 weeks. I said, and what about chemo? They said, no, you don't need chemo. I said, you're kidding. They said the serum will actually make you immune to the cancer. So if there is anything in there, it can't metastasize, because like a vaccination, they said you will not be able to get the disease.
Wow.
So I found that unbelievably. But I found out that serum would only work for me.
Yes.
It had to be made from my tumor and given to me. It wouldn't work for anybody else.
Yeah.
So that was another realization that, oh my God, the whole perspective of how they heal is completely different than what goes on in this country.
I have to ask you, you're faced with death, really right and, you know, pushed in your face very suddenly. Has it brought on a new life to you, do you feel?
You know, it has, but most of my outer life has changed very little. The outer life is a little changed, but the internal is completely changed. As a matter of fact, I often tell certain people, I feel like I did die.
Yeah.
I don't feel like the person I was came back. I feel like this is a new person that came back into this life.
Yeah, I can relate to that. Yeah.
That has been my experience all the way through. Don't see things in the same way. I don't relate to things in the same way. My work is completely much deeper, much more profound than it had been before. Just everything. My relationships, everything has actually shifted. Although outwardly I live in the same place, I got my same job back. I do really similar things
Right,
to what I
right,
did.
right. Oh, I mean, it's. I can relate to that. I think it's also hard for people to see you as different because if you look the same, you know what I mean.
Hmm. Yes.
But yeah. And
Yes.
what? So can I ask you what advice do you think you'd give to somebody who was experiencing? Uh, I don't know. Suddenly they've got a diagnosis, or they're looking for an alternative treatment for something they've had for a long time. Is there any? You probably ask this like all the time, but
Hmm.
is there advice that you can give to the people who are listening today that might pass on?
What I tell everybody is, first of all, you can never take what you receive as real.
Mm,
It may be partially real, like my diagnosis. It wasn't that he was wrong,
mm,
but in the end, it didn't turn out the way that he thought it was going to turn out.
mm,
So
mm,
I always caution people that you can only take everything with a little bit of grain of salt.
mm,
And yes, you want to investigate, but you do not want to buy into it.
mm,
And you do not ever want to buy into the fear aspects of something.
mm,
You really need to weigh whether that is absolutely true or not. It's a little like what's going on with this virus right now.
mm,
People are buying in very deeply into highly fearful things that we don't even know for sure are true or are not true. What we always must remember, science is always behind. They're always behind the eight ball whenever it comes to something brand new. And but the problem is they don't want to look stupid, so people throw things out. Just like, and even my doctor, and he wasn't wrong. It's just that his perspective was limited.
I
And I
like
caution
that.
people that all of our perspectives are limited, no matter if it's an expert, if it's somebody, it doesn't matter who it is. We are all human beings and we are all limited in our perspective. And do not go to the fear. Do not go to it. It's not worth it.
Right.
Simply not worth it.
Yeah, I mean, I really and there's two things that come up. One is science is trying to describe reality, so it can never actually be correct because reality is so limited by our tools. Yeah, so we're always going to be
Absolutely.
behind that. That's been going on for
Always.
hundreds of years. And then
Yep.
there's a certain philosophy called scientism, which is the belief in science as a new religion, which is nonsense. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
um,
Yes.
and the other thing is you went, and I think this is one of the marked things from your story, and I think it comes back again for me. It's like you went through death, you came alive. Through the threat of death, suddenly just bliss appeared.
Yeah. Yes.
A total new perspective on life appeared, and I think that's I mean, I wouldn't go as far as to say as it's a gift, but in a way I would,
Mm-hmm.
because like nothing could what could enrich your life so deeply than this experience. Um,
Exactly.
and I wouldn't wash, and I mean, I've had an experience, um, I would say a different kind of painful experience myself, and then I certainly wouldn't wish it on anybody. But then again, it has given me gifts along the way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I
And
mean, I feel that it's just a wonderful inspiration, Gary. I mean, it's just really exciting. So where
and I
can
often, yes, go ahead.
no? I just want to know where people can get this book. Can they get it on Amazon? Can they
Amazon.
Kindle it?
Amazon is my publisher. I didn't go with any major publisher. I just went to Amazon so I could kind of keep it and do with it what I want to do. I want to help people with it.
Right.
So that's really where it is. You just
So
go to Amazon,
Kindle.
Gary Ramsay, and it's Bliss, One Hero's Journey.
Brilliant. Okay, that's
Yep.
fantastic. Well, I'm hoping you'll become a regular listener to Discover Energy Work, and I hope I get your feedback and keep in touch. We'd love to hear
Absolutely.
how things are going with you, and I think it's a fantastic story. And I think really, really, I think it's brave of you to come out and share. and it's very compassionate as well.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And thank you for having me.